welcome to Soothing Pod Sleep Stories. I am Anthony, and if you are here today to listen to a dreamy story that will soothe you and comfort you, you are in the right place. Tonight, I want to tell you a story that takes place in a wonderful fairy tale realm. But before you listen to this tale, let's take some time to relax. You deserve to rest and find calm completely now. Make yourself comfortable. Expand your breath as you stretch. And relax each muscle. Breathe deeply. Inhale, exhale. As you breathe in, feel how your pillow supports you. Sink into it with your weight. Let it take more and more of your body's heaviness or tiredness. And let's be still and quiet for a few seconds longer. Sleep will release any stress you have about tomorrow. But first, a peaceful story about bright, shining realms where brave hearts walk. Once upon a time, there was a soldier. He was sharp and lively, despite having spent his prime in the war. Once released from his regiment, he took to travelling, and everywhere he went, he endeavoured to be polite and quick to lend a hand. This way, he met many friends and was welcome in many homes. Yet he could not find a place to settle down. He moved often, worrying that he'd lost something essential. He'd traded those important years that would have secured his life, and his greatest fear was that his usefulness was over. Still, he kept himself trim and started each day with the determination to do better. There was always somewhere new to go, and the soldier gripped tightly to the hope that someone there would need him. Though he didn't for one moment let that faraway hope of a true home drive him past anyone in need. He was in no hurry, and stopped for every cartwheel that needed repair, hungry dog that needed feeding, or farmer that needed the harvest brought in. So he made his way through many towns and countries until he found himself in a cursed kingdom. He would have felt it soon enough, the overcast of fear that was heavy, and the soldier's instincts were still sharp as thorns. But a little old lady tottered into the road to warn him. "This is no place for young men," she told him. The soldier smiled and removed the hat from his silver hair. "My youth is gone, you need not worry about that," he answered politely. And yet not old enough to be retired by a cosy fire. The old woman had clear eyes that shone out from a faded, wrinkled face. She smiled at the handsome soldier and beckoned for him to join her at the bright fire that burned outside her small cottage. He only sat for a moment before he noticed the thatch on her roof was slipping. "I could have that tied up tight for you in an hour," the soldier offered. Yes, very helpful, but I am not one for charity." The old woman gave the soldier another smile and tugged gently at his cuff. "But perhaps your coat could use some mending. The sun hasn't shone here for months, and the cold can find its way in through even the smallest of tears. The same, I imagine, as through the gaps in a thatched roof." They considered each other carefully and then laughed. He knew she was up to something, but he could tell it would be a favour to him in the end. She seemed a cunning woman, despite her crooked back and wrinkled face, and the soldier felt rightly that he could trust her. So he took to patching and tying her thatched roof, while she tore open his heavy coat and deftly repaired every seam. Later, the soldier marvelled at her skill. "Why, your stitches are all but invisible." The old woman grinned at the compliment and then tapped the side of her nose twice. "When I was young, they said I could sew clothes that made every beauty seen. Now I know the value of subtler arts." With that, the soldier and the old woman parted, and he continued on his way into the heart of the cursed kingdom. The wind that blew was harsh, but the soldier felt warm and fortified, and he moved on without hesitation. His only pause was when he wished he had asked the old woman about the strange cast over the country. Why were all the young men afraid? He could see a pair of youths ahead of him, kicking rocks at the crossroads, and they often looked over their shoulders with quick, worried glances. As the soldier approached, they continued their hushed conversation, and he overheard them say, "We should just run, leave today and run. But what about our families? They'll be better off hoping we can return from other lands than knowing we'll never come back from the castle." The soldier laid a friendly hand on the first youth's back and said, "Fear is better faced than left to grow bigger." The young man jumped 2 feet in the air, and his friend let out a howl of surprise. The equally surprised soldier had to duck and evade their frightened thrashing so quickly that he began to sweat, and when he was at a safe distance, he undid the top buttons of his coat. "Was it you that spoke just now, sir?" the first youth said, his teeth chattering. The soldier nodded, his fingers still on his open buttons. "I didn't mean to scare you, only to offer advice and assistance." The second young man wiped his brow with a shaky hand. "We didn't see you there, and we apologize, sir. I'm afraid you caught us talking like cowards." "What do you have to be afraid of?" 2 young men looked at the soldier and knew with their first glances that he had survived the terrors of war and knew what he spoke of when he talked of fear. There was no judgment in his face, only camaraderie, and it was obvious that he was a man to be trusted. They both began talking at once. "There's a curse upon the kingdom, an otherworldly spell, and the king is powerless to stop it. Every day he demands a new champion for his daughters, yet none survive to wed a princess." The soldier held up his hands to slow their words and ask for real details. "They die from the challenge or by the king's hand?" "Both," the young men said at the same time. Then the first youth explained. "The miller's son died of fright. You could see it on his corpse's face when it was brought from the castle. And the blacksmith's son ran, babbling about portals and jeweled trees, and he was the bravest we had." "And the king killed him for defecting?" The soldier's mouth was set in a firm line that grew even more grim as the young men nodded. The second youth glanced over his shoulder again and whispered, "Now there is talk of no more volunteers. Every man in the kingdom must answer the challenge despite how many have died trying." "Then I must know more about the challenge," the soldier said. He shook their hands and started off again. "Wait, sir, how will you learn more? We told you all the details we know." The soldier turned to answer over his shoulder without slowing his gait. "I will go to volunteer." The young men's mouths hung open with admiration, but their feet stayed firmly planted in the crossroads. The soldier moved on more quickly now that he had found a purpose, and he soon found himself in the village square. Knots of villagers stood about the square talking in hushed tones, and any business that was done happened quickly and quietly. Women ran to and fro with wide, worried eyes, and most of the men tried to stay out of sight. Here the atmosphere of the curse was thicker, and seemed that everyone waited for the announcement they knew was coming. So a stranger was a welcome distraction. They all stared in turn at the newcomer, and the soldier found the perfect moment to test out a theory that had occurred to him on the road. He ducked behind a vegetable cart, buttoned his coat, and and no eyes watched him walk to the fountain. Once there, he opened his coat and surprised a young boy, who spilled a whole bucket of water. The soldier stooped to help the poor boy, but he scurried off without a word. Then a well-cultured voice sounded behind him. "Welcome, stranger. I'm sorry you haven't found us with better weather." The king's advisor kept his words polite, but the soldier could see his lips tremble. All around them the village square had emptied. It was as if the advisor's bright medals of rank flashed like a scarecrow across flocks of his own people. The strain of his solitary position showed in the tight creases around his eyes, and yet he tried to keep his words friendly. "We hope our kingdom can offer a warmer welcome come spring." "Hope can keep hearts beating," the soldier said, "and that is why I have come to volunteer." A well of tears appeared in the eyes of the king's advisor. He too could see the soldier had a good heart and was a man to be trusted. But before he let his tears overflow, he smoothed his golden chains and asked, "So your reason for volunteering is hope?" "I volunteer to spare the young men," the soldier replied. The advisor spoke over a barely suppressed sob. "You have a child here in the kingdom that you wish to protect?" "No, sir, but I wish to be of service." "I have a son in the kingdom, too young, but his day is drawing near." The king's advisor wiped away a wash of tears. "Still, I must tell you to leave this place. I can see you are a good man and you deserve to live out your life." The soldier shook his head against the idea of leaving and explained, "My life has been made for challenges, and without the next, I will not know what to do. Please, Your Excellency, I volunteer for my life." The high-ranked advisor bowed low to the soldier and did his best to stop his tears. "Then you must tell the king your reason for volunteering is for the sake of our 3 princesses. He grows desperate to secure his daughter's safety, and he sees deception everywhere, even when there is none." They began to walk together towards the castle gates. Seeing the king's advisor with a willing volunteer in hand, people again appeared in the village square. It was a pleasant place, the soldier noted, and he felt that if the cursed haze could be lifted, he could be quite happy there. His heartbeat grew steadier at that faint hope, and the soldier walked with his head held high. And that was how the eldest princess first saw him. The soldier strode bravely into the castle gardens, with the king's advisor leaning heavily on his arm. They walked the long way around the knotted herb beds, and she soon found herself following them. His hair was silvered, but his face unlined, his eyes clear and sharp, but kind. She knew their talk was grim, but the soldier still had a smile for the wayward kitten that sprang out of the rosemary and attacked his boot. "The youngest princess is so fond of kittens, still just a child with a sunny disposition," she overheard the king's advisor say. "The second is silly, as many young girls are, and she worries most about her romances, imagined or not." The soldier perceived they were being followed, but he asked quite innocently, "And what about the eldest?" The king's advisor answered without hesitation, "She is a jewel worth having if it were not for the terrible price." The eldest princess ducked behind a sculpted shrub and pressed a hand hard over her fluttering heart. She was used to hearing herself spoke of, and she was old enough not to be made nervous by the opinions of others. But the small, approving smile the soldier sent in her direction made her pulse gallop. It was foolish to hope. She knew all too well, but the princess had to hear more. The 2 men stopped when they reached the great double doors of the castle. "Please, good sir, consider turning back," the king's advisor said. "What reason can you have to stay here in our cursed kingdom? I told you I volunteer to spare the young men, and I am honored to pledge to the king to save the princesses. Though, since you ask so sincerely, I will tell you my true reason. I wish nothing more than for my life to be of worth again. While the king's advisor was silent, tamping down another flood of tears, the eldest princess appeared on the garden path and curtsied her greeting. "Come then, brave sir, and we will go to the king together. Can you, my lady, tell me anything of the challenge I will face?" the soldier asked as they walked the great hall together. "Only that you should not drink the wine my second sister will bring you tonight. May clear eyes see you back safely to the castle tomorrow morning." The soldier surprised himself by asking, "Where perhaps they can look on you again." Her hopeful smile fled as the king, her father, called out a harsh greeting. "A willing champion, he must be a complete fool. Please, your majesty, I pledge to save your daughters. What can I know of the challenge ahead?" The soldier was sad to release the eldest princess's arm, but he instantly sank into a low bow. "Each night I lock them up and wear the soul key around my neck. Guards stand at their door and below their windows, and I am so sleepless I know for certain the watch never falters. So why are they exhausted each morning? And why, foolish sir, are their dancing shoes always worn all the way through?" The king bellowed the last question, and then threw a silk slipper at the kneeling volunteer. The soldier caught the shoe and saw indeed how the bottom was worn almost transparent, as if it had been danced upon for days on end. He saw also how the eldest princess could speak no words about the curse upon her, though she was desperate to tell someone the secret that had ensnared her and her sisters. Dinner was a sorry, frazzled affair, filled only with the king's exhausted entreaties and the princess's enchanted silence. The soldier ate dutifully, but turned down the last glass of wine the second princess offered him. He instead suggested an early night for them all, and soon found himself stationed inside the heavy, bolted door of the princess's bedchambers. There he pretended to be sound asleep, and not to notice when the sisters rose up and slipped on new pairs of dancing shoes. "Perhaps he drank some of your wine when we weren't looking," the eldest princess said in despair. "Better he sleep through the night and try to run in the morning than follow us and go mad," the youngest princess piped up. "Hush, both of you, we don't want to be late." The second princess produced an odd piece of chalk and turned to draw a door on the smooth stone wall. A portal opened and the second princess rushed through. The youngest ran to catch up, and the eldest only paused for one sad look at the sleeping soldier before she hurried to follow her sisters. Unsure if they were the deceivers or the victims of the curse, the soldier donned his coat again, buttoning it all the way to his chin before he too walked through the portal in the solid stone wall. The Fey world has many doors and many names, but it is always a waking realm where the sun never seems to set. The soldier caught up to the princesses in a wooded glen where the trees glistened with silver leaves. He plucked one unnoticed as the sisters argued. "The only reason you're allowed to come with us is so you won't tattle," the second princess reminded her younger sister. The eldest princess responded sharply, "And the only reason I am here is to remind you how dangerously silly you are being." The second princess led the way to a golden grove before she declared her reason. "He loves me, and if this is the only way we can be together, then I have no choice." Hidden by the invisible seams of his coat, the soldier plucked a golden leaf from one of the strange trees and slipped it into his pocket. He then followed the princesses up a sapphire blue hill and down towards a shining castle. They stopped again in a glittering copse of diamond-studded trees. "We cannot go on like this, dearest," the eldest princess implored her second sister. "If he truly loved you, he would realize the curse he has brought on our kingdom and declare his love to our father the king." She stopped talking abruptly, sure she had just seen a diamond leaf disappear into thin air, and then began again with a wistful tone. We who have been seen here cannot speak of what we see. We can only depend on you talking to your fey prince to save us. But how can I? The second princess wailed. I cannot lose his love. The soldier then followed the princesses into the fairy hall and watched as they danced the bright and nearly unending night away. He remained unseen all the way back past the diamond trees, the sapphire hill, the golden grove and the silver glen, and he did not reveal himself until they were safe in the princess's bedchambers and the portal had been wiped clean from the stone wall. Then the soldier went directly to the sleepless king. He told him of the second princess's love, and showed him both silver and gold leaves as proof of the waking realm. He then gave the king his coat of invisible seams, so that the besotted princess would have no choice but to introduce her fairy love to her father and so break the spell. The tired soldier bowed low and tried to take his leave, but the king would not hear of it. I cannot have you leave empty-handed after having saved us all. Stay as our family, marry if you would like, but please know you are wanted and needed here. The king's sentiments were reflected in the face of his eldest daughter as she ran into the soldier's arms. Only then did the soldier reveal the diamond and offer it as a gift to his own worthy love. Take this story as your own gift, and now drift off to the dreaming realms, where your heart, mind and body will know nothing but peace. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this fairy tale. I'll be with you again tomorrow on Soothing Pod.